Welcome back to another edition of Post Media's Ottawa Senators panel. I'm Ken Warren, the Lee Versage of TSN 1200, and Terry Marcotte from CTV Ottawa. Lots to get to, guys, from the Senators, who had been on a bit of a very good roll. Coming back now, we're talking after the loss, the 1-0 loss to Columbus, bit of a nothing game. But maybe, Lee, this is the kind of game we're going to see from the Senators. They can't gamble too much. You're going to have to play conservative. It's a kind of a game where you're not going to open up too much. Is this what fans should expect for much of the season?
Well, I know they lost 1-0, but I think it's actually a really good sign. This team has continued to play well and be in games and be competitive. And I think into November, I didn't think that was going to be something this team was going to be able to achieve. And Terry, I thought maybe DJ Smith would get a hold of this team and it would be January, February. Okay, we're starting to get competitive. We're getting a little bit younger. But they have been very, very competitive over the last 3 or 4 weeks. And I think when that happens, there is an expectation that people go, oh, maybe this team isn't as bad as we thought.
I didn't think they had the talent to be as good as they are. They're not a great team, but I didn't think they would be competing night after night the way they are with their talent base. And DJ Smith, they buy in. I mean, this guy has really got them buying in.
I think there's an advantage to having a lot of young players because it's the coach says this, the coach says that.
Absolutely.
And if you don't play that way, well, then you don't play, right? So you have more veteran guy and you give them a little bit more rope, and if they don't, then you get into these track meets that you don't have the skill to play, and you lose 5-3 or whatever. Here you're in every game. Like the Columbus game was a 0-0 game. It could have gone either way. But I also think here, and we can get into this, I think the goaltending has really helped them in the games where they're under siege a little bit, and both, especially Anders Nielsen, has been outstanding, and Craig Anderson has had his moments here too.
Well, they both have, and they've carried the team. When you're getting an almost .925 save percentage, you're going to be in a lot of games. And, you look at the game against Columbus last night. Yes, they got good goaltending from Korpisalo, but they went into that game with an under 900 save percentage. Right. And you wonder why Columbus isn't as good as people expect. Well, as soon as Ottawa's goaltending and that save percentage comes down from 925 and gets back to a more reasonable 910, 905, you're not going to see this team be as competitive. They have had better than average goaltending so far this year.
And what DJ Smith, and he's varied a few times, and I don't think the results have been great, but he hasn't been going with the hot hand. And in the last while, it's one, then the other, and he's been rotating. And I think that is a secret because one will have a good game, then it pushes the other.
Well, and it helps because the schedule is being so crazy. You got these back-to-backs. You got a road trip like crazy. This November has been insane. I mean, I've been on the road a fair bit too. The travel has caught up would normally catch up with them, but it hasn't. They've started to win a little bit, not in Columbus, but on the road, and they've been able to play pretty well in the back-to-back situations. And a lot of that is maybe the goaltending. One guy not going back-to-back nights has been able to sort of give rest to the other guy.
Oh, they've been more fresh for sure. Yeah. They come in and you look back to Craig Anderson when he has played at his absolute peak with this team. Most of the time, when Robin Leonard and Ben Bishop were here, right. It's the three-headed, who's going to be the number one? Yeah. Craig Anderson said, you know what, I'm going to be the number one. And when Craig Anderson has been pushed a little bit, like he's being pushed by Anders Nielsen right now, he seems to come out and play a little bit better.
And Nielsen's been a great story, I think. I'm not sure what we expected really from him. We expected him to be a solid goaltending, maybe not as good. But there's also been some stories here, and I think it's been intriguing from our point of view. We've been able to tell some stories about certain players, and whether it's redemption or comeback or certain situations like Anthony Duclair going into Columbus, where he was thrown under the Columbus last year, and he has had 10 goals. I mean, who would have expected that great a start? I mean, it's a gamble. Pajot, of course, maybe he's cooled off a little bit, but these are decent stories that maybe this team, maybe we didn't expect as many of these.
The DJ Smith style, I mean, it seems pretty straightforward, and you talk about Duclair. I mean, he's got speed, and he's now in a position where his speed is allowed to shine, and that, I think, is what DJ Smith has done. He's taken the players and let them play to their strengths rather than playing a system. I don't really see a system with this team. I just see work hard, and it reminds me a lot of the Ottawa Senators from back in the day, where if you make a mistake in the neutral zone, it's going the other way with speed. And I think it's pretty exciting hockey. It's not, but they've been so bad defensively for so many years. Like,
Right.
And there's a really interesting comment just the other day from Mark Borowiecki, who said that we're going to be in our defensive zone and we box out and we're going to be, closer to the net than the other guy, and we have to play that way. We've never really played that way in the last few years. And in my mind, I'm like, what? You've never played the way, like, on closer to the goaltender and boxed people out before? But it was quite a telling comment about how DJ Smith wants them to play and how they've played in the past few years.
Well, I'll talk about save percentage. I mean, you get shots from the outside as opposed to right in front of the net, then your save
It
percentage.
blew my mind. It's like, well, do you play on the other side of the guy and let him go right to the
Now,
net?
this brings up the question, and some fans are going, wait a minute. Yeah, we like them winning, but wait a minute. Are you winning too much? Because the fruits of this rebuilding are supposed to be the high draft pick that's coming. Lee, you talked about, Mikael Bodker going in the lineup. Why Mikael Bodker? Is this some kind of situation where you're trying not to win? I mean, is there a little fine edge here or fine line?
Oh, there absolutely is. They brought the kids up, and all of a sudden it's work ethic, and the guys are working hard, and they won 9 of 13. I think you're going to see now where the veterans are on this team, what can you get from them? But there is a little bit of a worry. The worst thing that can happen, I'm telling you right now, the worst thing that can happen is for them to play better than you think, but still not make the playoffs, and all of a sudden they're 10th last. You either make the playoffs or you finish last, but finishing in that mushy middle, that's a terrible idea. So Bodker gets back in. I think you're going to see a Nisimov come back in. You're going to see some guys that, you know what, maybe they have a more veteran presence, but they're older and they're slower, and I think that
it's a weird approach.
Yeah,
but it's also, you look at the history of rebuilds. I mean, Toronto, Austin Matthews, they were terrible to lead up to get that top pick. So
and look at where Toronto is now. You got to develop a winning culture, and I think winning, you go out and you try to win every game if you can. A winning culture is so important.
Well, you do, but you do it with guys that probably aren't going to, as opposed to making sure that guys are in. Like, the winning culture is absolutely necessary. What's going on now is great, but you can't do that all the time with putting the best people in the lineup. You kind of have to manage it. That's Pierre Dorian's job now, to make sure that I'm looking at this and still in a 2, 3, 4 year window and not get caught up with what's happening right now.
Well, and then at some point here, maybe in the next month or two, we're going to start to see maybe guys going out the door, the veteran guys, some of them that are going to get a bit of a return, right? I mean, you might see, we talked about Craig Anderson. Craig Anderson might be a good pickup for somebody looking for a guy with experience, can back up, maybe it'd be a decent solid backup for a team that's going to have a playoff run. We'll get to Pajot maybe later. Pajot is an interesting one, whether you keep him or send him off. But the idea that at some point you are going to move these veteran players here.
I could see. I mean, a guy like Craig Anderson would be a pretty good fit for the Leafs.
And then you got the Anderson combo in Toronto.
There you go. Anderson starts.
You're not trading Craig Anderson to Toronto. You better not.
Why not?
Because you're not going to get very much for Craig Anderson anyway. Like, 38 years old, kind of at the end of his deal. I'm not trading him to Toronto. I might trade him. There's lots of teams that need goalies right now. There's a lot. Like, New Jersey,
are you more concerned here? Like, sure, depending on the return. But if you get more from Toronto than somebody else, then are you not more concerned about what your return is for your tomorrow?
Of course you are. But you're not going to... I don't know if you're going to get more from... If you get way more from Toronto than anybody else, fine. Of course, you have to do that. But I don't know. I wouldn't be trading them to Toronto.
Guys, just before we run out of time here, but just before we sign off here, just a thought on Bobby Ryan, who entered into the NHLPA's assistance plan. I mean, we've all been around Bobby Ryan quite a bit. I mean, I really personally like the guy. I think when he wants to talk, he's very open, discusses things. I think it's a great program. There's a lot of things I dismiss about the NHL. I talk about discipline or whatever. But I think this is a great program that helps players when they're in a little bit of trouble to get their lives back. And I don't think fans sometimes understand that hockey players, as much money as they make, go through stresses and have their own issues.
What I like about the program, we're not hearing anything about Bobby Ryan. Nobody is hearing anything, and that's what he needs. Go away, figure out whatever is wrong, and come back. And I agree, Bobby Ryan is one of the brightest and one of the most personable players I've come across. And you just want the best for him, because he's a good guy, and everybody has their struggles. And I hope things work out well for Bobby Ryan.
And if you haven't read what Bobby Ryan's story is, the background.
background is amazing.
It is one of the most unique stories and tough upbringings that we've seen in a long time. And I think that's it. Like, you can start to remove, especially in a year like this where the expectation isn't to win, you can remove that the guy makes $7 million a year plus and go, you know what? Bobby Ryan needs a little bit of help and is in the right place to be able to do it. And you start to think about the person and not the hockey player anymore.
Yeah, and again, I think it's a great plan. Like I said, off a great plan, and I think the Senators, in the situation they have, can give him the time, and there's no rush for him to come back. Thanks again for tuning in to Ottawa Senators, the post-media Ottawa Senators panel. Thanks very much, Lee and
Thanks for
Terry.
having us.
Yeah, thanks very much. Take care, guys.